Every grain has a story to tell, and it's up to you to tell it.
Today, we're going to be doing a bit of a different project, and that's going to be an end table. Now, this is an end table, for your living room, end of the couch, something like that. And it's actually going to be pretty easy to build. And you could build this at home if you wanted, using a table saw, a miter saw, some clamps, some glue, that sort of stuff. The idea behind it is we're going to have a flowing grain. That means that we're going to take one piece, and one piece is going to become the backside and the top side, so we can have it flow around the corner. For these pieces, for the consistent flow of the grain, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try using a miter lock bit. I got this a little while ago. I have not used it yet. So we're going to try the setup on this. This is for a 5/8 to 3/4 inch piece. And the piece we're going to use for this is some cherry. And it's currently planed down to 3/4 of an inch thick. So I think this bit's going to work really well. We're going to have to do the setup on it as well. So we're going to use this piece of cherry, and we're going to use another piece as well, because this is going to be a two-tone piece. We're going to have wood grain, and we're going to have another piece supporting it that's painted black. Okay, so for the height on this project, we're going to be 23 inches high, and we're going to have our top shelf at 13 inches because we want this flowing. That means that we're going to be cutting our pieces at 36 inches in length. Because this is rough lumber, we've got to square it up. So we're going to do that next. Flip this up like this. We're going to center this on 3/8 of an inch because this is 3/4 inch thick. That's half. And we're going to put about 4 dowel pins all the way along this. And then we're going to do the exact same with this side, but we have to keep our face of the fence here on that side that we've marked. So that way we're going to be at the exact same height. So just so you can see, because I didn't show it in the video before, but I did put some calls on the end there in order to keep this thing flat. And I've got clamping pressure on both sides. So it's almost dry. And once it's dry, we're going to take it out and get it prepped. All right, so we've got our laminating done. And I went ahead and ran this thing through the planer to make sure that we're nice and flat. And I tried my best here, even though I've got a seam down the middle, to try and kind of make the grain kind of line up a little bit. You can use some plywood and do it all as one piece, or if you've got any other boards that are about 13 inches wide, or change the dimensions. It's entirely up to you. So next part is we are going to cut our top at a 13 inches, and then we're going to get to the miter joint. But we're going to try our miter lock bit so that way we can get these corners to lock together just like this, and we'll have a flowing grain. So let's give it a shot. Now for this, the way as I understand that we've got to set this up is we want this channel, this piece right here in the middle. So which means because we've got 5/8 of an inch in thickness, we want the exact center of this to be around 5/16. So I've got this, fortunately, this nice depth gauge here, which works really well. And I've got it set up to 5/16 of an inch in height. And so we're directly in the center of this, which is good. So our height is good. Now we've got to set the depth of our fence. All right, so I'm pretty sure I've got this set up now. So I've got the center of the thickness here lined up with the center of that bit. And then I've taken the bit here and took a straight edge to make sure that it matches that bottom corner. So in theory, this should work, but let's give it a try and see how it does, as scary as this is. Clearly, I have some setup issues with that, so I'm going to go and do that and cut these pieces a little bit shorter, so the grain's going to be off a little bit, but you know what? We're going to make it work. Okay, so we're going to try this again because last time it wasn't quite set up right, so I ended up now I've done a bunch of test pieces, and yeah, let's run this through and see if we can make this work. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this. This was my first time ever using a miter lock bit. Now, I actually screwed up the first one because I didn't set it up properly. So I had to cut it straight, do it again. I learned the setup and the proper measuring techniques. And now when I lock this in, especially once I get some glue in there, that is going to lock in really nice. And it's going to provide a decent amount of strength. If you want to try a miter lock bit, it was like 30 bucks on Amazon. I think the brand name was Yonico. It was decent. So give it a shot if you want to try it out. So we're going to get this glued up and then move to the next stage. So while we're waiting for this to dry, what we're going to do next is we're going to take some pine pieces. These are 1 inch thick, and these are going to be our supports for the front. And what I think I'm going to do, initially it was going to go down on kind of a down, but also on an angle here. I'm not going to do that. I think what I'm actually going to do is this is going to go down the center, and then this piece is going to go across like that. And it's going to be cut and scab together right here. And I'm going to use pocket holes because to hold pieces together, because I've also got plugs. So let's do this up and I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll get the clamps off and everything so you can kind of visualize it, because at the end, we're not going to be leaving this pine. We're going to be painting them black. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to join these pieces just like this. We are perfectly square. And once we've got these pieces joined, they're going to go here like this. Obviously, we're going to do that properly, but they're going to go there like that to act as the support for the front of this table. And so because we've modified this a little bit to give you an idea, right here, we've got about 21.5 inches, or 21 and 9/16. You can go with that as well. This piece here is going to be about 7 and 15/16, or 7 and 7/8. That'll work as well, simply because we've got to take the depth of this being just over 11 and 5/8. We've got to subtract 3 3/4 of an inch, which gives us the length for this piece.
Say what?
So I'm gonna go ahead and get these secured up, and then we'll move to the next step. We are not going to be securing these pieces onto here until these are painted black. All right, so we've now got these pieces glued together and they're painted black. Now, after painting them black, what I wanted to do with this is, because I still want it to look like wood. I don't want it to look like a piece of metal. So I'm just taking some 4-0 fine steel wool and brushing along the edges. And what I want to do is I want to get a little tiny bit of the wood showing on the corners. And so I'm just brushing it down. The other advantage to using the steel wool like this is it's going to help smooth out the surface and any of those the grain that has raised up. And then we're going to get this secured. And once we've got this secured to our main piece, which is right here, then we're going to give the whole thing a coat of spray varathane to give it a nice amount of protection. And then we're pretty much done. Now, how we're going to attach this is pretty simple. Most of it's going to be glue because there's not going to be a huge amount of stress on it. I've drilled a pocket hole over here. That pocket hole is going to go in to the back piece. The top piece is going to go along here, and this is just going to be glued and clamped. Same at the bottom, it's going to be glued as well. Now, we want this directly in the center. So I've taken my combination square and I've got the depth here set to 6 inches because we're 13 inches wide. This is an inch thick. We're going to have 6 inches on either side. That's going to give us this thing in the perfect position. So we're going to go ahead and get this screwed in, get it glued, and go from there. We've got that screwed in place on the bottom. We're glued here. We're glued here. So we're going to give that a minute and, or more than a minute. We're going to give it a little while, let it dry. And then we're going to come back, clean this up, and get it ready for its final finishing. So what I was originally going to do is have, yes, this part was going to come down. This part was going to come on an angle to back here, and all of this would have been solid. So again, that's just another idea. I happen to like this one better, which is why I went this route. Or you can do the reverse. You can leave this a nice wood grain, and you can do this piece up here that in black, and that would be ideal if you're using plywood for up here. There's so many variations to this. You can use pocket holes. That's great. Alternatively, what you can use, which is a tool I used when I was laminating these, is you could put two dowel pins here. You could put dowel pins here and dowel pins up here. I didn't see the need for that. I thought it was a little bit of overkill based on what this table is going to do. I mean, it's just an end table. It's not going to hold a lot. As far as the miter lock up here, this was my test piece. And because I'd never used the miter lock bit before. So it worked out well. It's got a few gaps in there, but I'm not really too worried about that. You could do this on a 45-degree miter. And then you could do some slots in here, and you could insert some pieces of wood to give that joint some strength. There's so many different ways you could do this. I just wanted to try something that was super unique. All right, so now that we've got all that glue set, we're going to use some of this water-based clear satin finish varathane. All right, so now that we've got our finish done, we put a couple of coats on. We're pretty much like right at the end. So I did 2 coats of the varathane. In between each coat, I rubbed it down with some 4-0 super fine steel wool just to get any of the, burrs, or not burrs, but little hairs and whatnot sticking up. So that way we can get a nice smooth finish. The nice part about the varathane is it's going to make it really water resistant. We've got all of this finished up. We've kind of got our flow of grain here. If you saw earlier in the video before, I kind of screwed up the first time I did the miter lock. So I had to trim it back flat again and do the miter lock again with new settings, but I got it to work. and therefore lost about a 1/4 inch off of these boards, or a little bit more than that. So they look a little bit different. I was kind of going for that like waterfall effect, and I pretty much got it. So you can do it different ways, use different materials, and only use the basic tools like table saw, miter saw, that sort of stuff. But switch it up, make a variation, be creative. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, happy cutting.